The scene opens with a warm sunlight pouring down on a quiet street. A young girl, Lucy, around 10 years old, is standing behind a small handmade lemonade stand. Her hair is pulled back into a messy ponytail, and she wears a big smile, though it's clear she's been standing there for hours. The lemonade sign reads, "Lemonade for a cure, help me fight cancer." Her eyes are hopeful, but there's exhaustion creeping into her expression. Lucy, calling out with a determined voice, "Lemonade, fresh lemonade, only $1. Help me raise money for my chemotherapy. Every penny counts." She looks at each passerby with a hopeful gaze, but most people walk by without even glancing at her. A couple of people glance over, but no one stops. Her fingers grip the edge of the table, and she takes a deep breath, trying to stay strong. Her mother, Sarah, late 30s, is sitting on a nearby bench, watching with a look of concern. Sarah holds a cup of coffee in her hands, but it's clear that her mind is elsewhere, worried for her daughter. She glances at Lucy occasionally, her heart aching. Sarah, softly to herself, "Come on, Lucy. You can do this." Lucy sees a few more people pass by without stopping, and her shoulders slump just a little bit. She looks down at the lemonade stand and sighs, but then she straightens up again, forcing a smile. A couple of joggers pass by. They glance at Lucy's stand but don't slow down. One woman stops for a second to read the sign, then keeps going. A group of teenagers walks past, laughing, ignoring the stand. Lucy's hope begins to waver. Her gaze shifts to Sarah, who gives her an encouraging nod from the bench. Lucy forces a smile and calls out to a man walking by, but he doesn't hear her, lost in his own world. Lucy, with a slightly louder voice, "Lemonade? Just $1. Help me fight cancer." But no one stops. Lucy's eyes drop to the ground and she bites her lip, trying to fight back tears. Sarah watches with worry, her fingers tapping nervously on the cup. She wishes there was something more she could do. But then, just as Sarah begins to get up to join her daughter at the stand, something unexpected happens. The sound of footsteps approaching catches Lucy's attention. She lifts her head, but what she sees takes her completely by surprise. An older man, wearing a cowboy hat and a long coat, walks by. He moves with a slow but purposeful stride, his eyes scanning the surroundings. It's clear he's someone who's seen a lot in his time. As he gets closer, Lucy's eyes widen in recognition. It's none other than Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor and director. For a brief moment, everything around her fades into the background. She stands frozen for a second, trying to process what's happening. Lucy, almost in a whisper, "Is that Clint Eastwood?" Clint pauses in his tracks as he notices the lemonade stand. He glances at the sign for a moment, then looks down at Lucy. His weathered face softens, and there's a glimmer of empathy in his eyes. He steps closer to the stand, his boots tapping lightly on the pavement. "Clint," his voice deep but warm. "What's this? A lemonade stand for a cause?" Lucy, still in awe, manages to nod. She tries to collect herself, her hands shaking slightly as she speaks. Lucy, nervously, "Yeah, I'm raising money for my chemotherapy treatments. My family, we don't have enough, and the bills are a lot." Clint looks at her for a moment, taking in her words, his gaze softening even more. The air seems to shift, as if the breath. After a brief pause, Clint reaches into his coat pocket. The sound of crinkling bills is heard, through the bills for a moment, then hands Lucy a crisp $100 bill. His hand is firm, but his eyes show a deep sincerity. "Clint," with a slight smile, "Here, young lady, you've got guts. Keep fighting. I'll bet you make it through this." Lucy stares at the money in her hand, wide-eyed. Her mouth opens in disbelief. She stammers for a moment, unable to find the right words. The gesture is so kind and unexpected, it leaves her speechless. Lucy, tears starting to well up, "Thank you, sir. You really helped me a lot." Clint gives her a small nod, his face softening even more, before turning to walk away. He tips his hat to her with a quiet, respectful motion. Clint, gruff but encouraging, "Take care of yourself, kid. You've got this." As Clint walks away, the surrounding crowd begins to notice him. Whispers start spreading through the crowd as they realize who just passed by. Several people pull out their phones to snap photos, clearly starstruck. A few people begin to approach Lucy and her stand, inspired by Clint's act of kindness. Sarah, who has been watching the exchange from the bench, stands up quickly, her heart racing. She approaches Clint just as he begins to leave, completely stunned by the moment. Sarah, walking up to Clint. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for helping her. You've made such a difference. Clint turns to her with a small smile, tipping his hat once again. His eyes are kind, but there's also a depth to them that speaks of a life lived with compassion and strength. Clint, with a chuckle. You've got a fighter there. I'm sure she'll make it through. Just gotta keep the faith. He gives Sarah a final look before turning and walking down the street, blending into the crowd. People continue to whisper and talk about but Lucy stands there, holding the $100 bill in her hand, her eyes wide with amazement. Lucy looks up at her mother, tears streaming down her face. Sarah rushes over to her, pulling her into a tight hug. The crowd that had gathered around the lemonade stand is still whispering about the encounter, but to Lucy, none of that matters right now. She holds on to the bill, feeling as if her world has just shifted. Lucy, softly, almost to herself. I think we're gonna make it. Sarah pulls back slightly, brushing a tear from Lucy's cheek, and looks into her daughter's eyes with pride and love. Sarah, smiling through her own tears. We will, Lucy, we will. The camera pulls back, capturing the growing crowd around the lemonade stand, all of them now eager to buy lemonade, moved by the unexpected act of kindness. Sarah and Lucy stand there together, filled with hope, as the sun sets in the background.